Hello, I'm Iris Wilson. I tell you who I am because we had to stay out of church for 10 years taking care of my mother, and even though I've been in this church for since I was 9 years old, while we were out we had a lot of new people who came in, people who I haven't met yet, and a lot of new deacons. I wanted to share something with you about one of the deacons in particular. I may not mention all of them that have ministered to us, but this is one in particular who was very special to us. The first I ever heard of Mike Woodall was a phone call, and he asked if there was anything he could do for us, if he could, anything, he said. Is there anything you need?
One of the deacon families that I had was Tom and Iris Wilson and their son Phillip, and didn't know them, and but God laid on my heart just to start calling people and my deacon families, and I was calling this family, and Iris, she would tell me, we don't need anything, we're good.
And I couldn't think of anything, and then later he called again, and same thing. Isn't there something we can do for you? I'd say, no, I can't think of anything. This went on, I think, for maybe years. It went on a long time.
I'm thinking, you know, who's this Phillip Wilson? And so I start calling him, start talking to him. About half time I call, all he gets answering machine.
And then he told me one day that he was ministering to Phillip, our son, and he said that God had laid on his heart to give Phillip special attention. And it really, really touched my heart, because parents can do a whole lot for their children, but they can't do everything. There's an area where parents can't go, and it takes someone else outside the family to fill that need.
So finally I get to talking to him, we get to know each other, and he asked if it'd be okay if we come get him, bring him to Sunday school. And he'd like to come to Sunday school, but because of some of the situations in his life, he didn't want to be a bother in church, so if we could take him home after church. So it just was a real conviction in my life that I needed to be involved in his life. And so I involved my family and wanted him to get to know some of the other guys that were our age. And so as bringing him to church or bringing him to Sunday school and taking him home from Sunday school, got Raymond and a couple other guys involved. And so if I couldn't go, and they would get involved as well.
I was serving as a deacon a couple of years ago, and I was introduced to a young man named Phillip Wilson by Mike Woodall. Mike and I were serving deacons at the same time, and he came to me one day and just wanted to introduce me to Phillip, because he had started bringing Phillip to church and giving him a ride to Sunday school, and then he would take him back when Sunday school was over. And so he just wanted Phillip to know me and me know him, and that way he'd feel comfortable should I get to take him home. So we kind of began interacting with him. I'd pick him up at the times Mike couldn't bring him, and then I'd take him back home after Sunday school.
And I don't know how much Mike knew about Phillip's background. I don't know whether he knew that baseball is really a love of Phillip's, and that Phillip had played Little League. He was a pitcher for his Yankee team. He went into All-Stars. And then in the year he was 13, we began to see that something was drastically wrong with Phillip.
And a couple years ago, the men decided to go to a Smokies game, and Mike had learned through the Deacon family ministry that Phillip used to be a baseball player when he was a kid. And if y'all know Phillip, he had a brain tumor and had some radiation and just had some after effects of that.
One day Phillip called and said, "Mama, Mike Woodall and Raymond Barnhart are going to go to a Smokies game," and said they have asked me to go with them.
He was a pretty good baseball player from what I understand, people tell me. And then he had the brain cancer and got sick and wasn't able to play anymore. But don't know if he ever gotten to go to a Major League Baseball or even a minor league baseball game, but a professional baseball game before. But God just spoke to me and said, "Hey, ask Phillip. I bet he would love to go."
And I didn't say anything, but by this time Philip's coordination had gotten progressively worse again, and he was having a lot of falls, sometimes in the ER 3 times within 3 weeks. And I didn't know whether they knew what they were undertaking or not.
And Philip kind of put us off. He kind of told us that, you know, he felt it was a burden, felt that he couldn't walk to his chair and be able to get through there without falling down. And so we just kind of reassured him that we'd get him to a seat and we'd pick him up right at the gate.
I don't know whether he had given Mike a definite answer or whether he was having second thoughts. He said, I don't think I'll go. I said, do you want to go? And he said, I'd love to go, but he said, I don't think it's fair to these men for me to go. And I didn't know what to say. I didn't know whether this was just a casual invitation or whether Mike knew what it would be.
Well, we were just reassuring him that there's medical people right there. We've got that covered. No big deal. We're covered.
And so he gave it some thought and kind of continually said he didn't want to go. And so Mike Woodall eventually kind of just told him, Philip, we're going to come by and pick you up, so be ready that day.
I talked to him later and he said, I've decided that I'm going to go to that game. Well, since I had taken care of Philip so long, I had a little apprehension about it, but I said, are you sure? He said, Mike said, absolutely, he wants me to go.
I'll never forget when we pulled up in front of Broadway Towers, he had asked me the week before what Major League Baseball team the Smokies were affiliated with, and I told him the Cubs. And Philip was decked out in all his Cub attire. I mean, his Cub shirt, his Cub hat.
Well, as we're sitting there, you know, all the pregame stuff's going on, and the Smokies, they always have some kids that come out on the field. And Raymond can tell this story better than I can, but Philip's looking, and you know, he can't see real well as it is, and he's looking at these kids and he's just straining, and he makes the comment that, look at those ball players. I've never seen them that small before. They sure are small ball players. Raymond says, Philip, those are the little kids. The real ball players aren't out on the field yet.
And we just let him have the time of his life. And then that night when we brought him back home, and it was Mike and I and Donnie Osborne riding with me and Philip. And Philip sang to us all the way back home.
So it was just funny to see from his perspective just the joy and the excitement of going to the game, and what a thrill.
And we dropped him off that night and really went about our lives and never thought anything else about it.
And little did we know when that was going on that within this last year Philip would have one of those accidents that took his life.
Actually, Mike and I were invited to speak at his when they had the Receiving of Friends in his service. And as I went through the Receiving of Friends line, and I really didn't know anybody in the family other than Philip, and I only knew him through Mike and the times I shared with him. But his sister was there, and his sister, when I came through the line, I introduced myself, said I was from First Baptist Alcoa, and she said, "Oh, you're one of the guys that took Philip to the ball game, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I am." And she began to tell me how much that meant to Philip, that we'd take the time to take him there.
You just don't ever know how you're going to impact somebody by just going to a ball game. Something that we take for granted that our families can go and do, and other people can't be involved in.
And it was like God just spoke to me and told me, you know, it's the little bitty things in life that we do when we put others above ourselves. Because it would have been really easy, to be honest with you, for Mike and I and the other men just to go to the ball game that night and not worry about Philip. And had Mike not been persistent in taking him, that might have been what we done. But ultimately, we're the ones that got the blessing out of it.
The things that God prompts you to do in your life, you never know how that's going to impact somebody or impact your own life.
And I will tell you, as being a deacon, there could be things going on in your lives, and if you don't share that with your deacon, that's your family deacon, then really that deacon has no way to know. So I would encourage everybody when them deacons get in touch with you and ask you if everything's going on, if we can pray for you, if we can be there to serve you in any way, then I would encourage you to share that with them.
Look for the little things. Look for what God is speaking and how He's speaking to you, and take that challenge of being a deacon and being a servant, in what God calls us to do and be as a deacon. I
think Mike can have a special blessing for just knowing what he did for Phillip, what it meant to Phillip. And that lets us know time doesn't wait. And if God puts something on your heart that he wants you to do, I think it's a good idea to go ahead and get it done. So I appreciate our deacons and their wives and everyone in our church that is ministering to the church.